As you know, 14th of July is the National Day of Remembrance for the victims of honour-based violence. And we run a campaign every year. This year, with the PCC, West Midlands Police, Roshni Consortium, we did a very successful campaign to raise awareness, and we've reached over 45,000 people through social media. And the webinar was part of the campaign, but there was so much going on. So we decided to do the webinar at the end of the campaign to see how many other organizations would like to get involved next year and what more we can do, and you know how professionals are working together, how we get in a support from our parliamentary members, from other community leaders, and the community. And most importantly, as we have seen the rise in the numbers, we want to make sure that the experience our professionals have, they share this experience with the community, so they understand the signs, they understand how to help someone who might be in need of help. It could be your neighbor, it could be your friend, your colleague, it could be anybody. So the purpose of today's this event is to raise awareness about this crime and what kind of support you can provide. I mean, I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces. My friend Pat McFadden is here, who's been supporting the campaign of Wolverhampton, and we've got Simon Foster there, and he's a candidate for PCC. We've got West Midlands Police here, and our team member from all the way from India, Gurvinder Kaur, she's here, she's our director. So it's really good to see so many people here. So now I'm going to invite our first speaker for this afternoon. It's Pat McFadden. And before I do this, let me just remind you all that this event is going to be recorded, and if anybody have a problem, please do let us know in advance so we can pause it. Pause the video, because what we want to do is after this session, we are going to share this on social media so more people can hear what the stories you're going to be telling us, your experience you're going to be sharing with us today. So it will be shared on social media, and we're hoping to reach at least about 80 to 90,000 people through social media. So can I ask our friend Pat McFadden to please share his views and your first speaker.
Well, thank you very much, Rupinder. I hope everybody can hear me. I won't detain you for long, really. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the MP for Wolverhampton South East. I've worked with Rupinder Kaur and Jakara on these issues for a few years now. That's involved events locally in Wolverhampton and also in Parliament, where I've been happy to be either the host or the co-host to try to propagate knowledge about this issue. So I think this is very important work, and there's really just 2 points I would want to make by way of introduction. The first is that this is an issue that must be taken seriously by the authorities, and perhaps it hasn't always been in the past. And by the authorities, I mean everybody from the police to local authorities to the NHS to national government departments, really anyone who might be in a position to help someone who is trapped in a situation like this and fearful for their safety. So it's really important, events like this, in pushing it up the agenda and saying that this problem is here in the year 2020. We wish it wasn't, but it is here. And we want it to be taken seriously. And that brings me really to the second point, which is being rightly and strongly emphasised by Rupinder and by many of the other campaigners in this field, which is that the authorities that we're pleading with to take this more seriously mustn't be held back or put off by fear that they'll be accused of some kind of cultural insensitivity, or even worse, by standing up for people whose lives are at risk. There's nothing cultural about trying to own somebody. There's nothing cultural about trying to take away somebody's freedom. And there's certainly nothing cultural about doing someone physical harm, even to the point of ending their life because of the choices that that person wants to make. So we mustn't be held back by that fear. This is about the right of young men and women to make their own choices in life, to do so freely, and protecting that. And in society, we've got to protect that right from whatever culture or background the people come from. So as Rupinder's MP, as one of the local MPs in the West Midlands, I'm happy to support this event today. Happy to continue to work with all the organisations represented here to get this put up the agenda and to try to defend the freedom of people to make their own choices and decisions in life without fear of physical harm, of being ostracised, of being cast out by their families. That's what we're here to do, and that's what I'm here to support. I'm happy to stop there.
You're absolutely right, what you said there. People with authority, they're the one who can make a difference, and we're very grateful in Wolverhampton that we have your support. And if there's any issues and concerns, and we always come to you, and you've been very supportive. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is Fedra Madani. She is from Karma Nirvana, an organization, award-winning organization who've been supporting people, supporting victims of honor-based violence, forced marriages for many, many, many years. And the work they do is just amazing. So I would like to call Fedra Madani to share her views, please.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, my name is Fedra, and I am the senior call handler on the Karma Nirvana helpline. Our helpline was set up in 1993, I believe, and it's a national helpline supporting victims and survivors of honor-based abuse and forced marriage, but it's also a tool and a resource for professionals and third parties who are supporting with these cases, who may have some concerns, may have a gut feeling that something isn't quite right with the victim or client that they're working with, to call the helpline to get some information, guidance, see what the best next steps are. And we have a very small helpline team that are happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I absolutely agree with Pat that these forms of abuses need to be taken as seriously as any other form of abuse that will come forward, because it's a very hidden form of abuse. It's a form of abuse that some professionals may not have had a level of training on, and we're here for anybody. We speak to professionals from all different sectors all the time, whether it's an employer, whether it's the police, whether it's social care, whether it's education, and we provide what possible next steps there are for the victim, but additionally we'll speak to the victim confidentially as well. They don't have to leave any identifying information as to who they are or where they are, as long as they're getting that emotional support as well as the practical support. We're very happy to be a part of this event and these kinds of events, because it's so important to campaign not only for victims but amongst professionals, because any professional may be the point of contact for a victim to be able to get the support that they need. After that event, we had an increase of 54 cases that were referred to the helpline in the following week, which is why it's so important to create such a level of exposure. Yes, I can share our website and telephone number for the helpline. Our helpline is not just phone support as well. Victims and professionals can access support via email. Particularly for victims, this is important so that they don't run the risk of being overheard if they're in the family home or if they're with the perpetrator, so that they can just drop an email and ask for some support, and we're happy to give it over the phone as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, but in the West Midlands, I just pulled up some stats prior to this event, and in the West Midlands alone, in 2019 to 2020, we supported 148 victims. A lot of them were self-referrals from victims who had seen our telephone number, but additionally there were a lot of referrals from the police and social care, education sector, voluntary sector, who were ringing to maybe get refuge support or to get some, again, guidance on what they could do for a victim that they may be in contact with. So yeah, and the Day of Memory is something that we hold every year as a way to remember victims who have lost their lives for in the name of honour or so-called honour and shame. Yeah.
Thank you, Fedra, for sharing all of this information, very useful information. And yeah, please, we will put your details there. If there's anything else you think you want us to share with all the people who've joined here, please drop us an email and we'll be happy to do that. But yes, as you said, it's really important giving information to people, not just general public, but the professionals as well, because not every organization who's working with the who's running even a DV service can be trained to deal with cases such as honor-based violence. So training is very important. So thank you very much for your time today. Our next speaker is Sohail from Roshni, Birmingham, not so far from us. Roshni has been Sayed from Roshni. She's been one of our, well, with Jakara and Roshni, who've run this campaign in Wolverhampton, in West Midlands this year, and it's been a quite successful campaign, and she works very, very, very hard. And also she's part of the consortium which is funded by PCC. Roshni is the lead organization, and today Sayed will be speaking about the work Roshni do in West Midlands.
Hi everyone. Yes, in terms of the work we do with victims and survivors, Roshni was set up 40 years ago, so we've been supporting victims for over 40 years. We currently provide a range of services for honour-based abuse and forced marriage, along with no recourse to public funds, FGM and various other services. We've got refuge provision, outreach service. We do workshops in schools, workshops in the community. We've recently started a counselling service which is delivered in South Asian language. Again, as Rupinder's introduced, we've also got the helpline that we deliver in partnership with Swan and Panaga in Coventry. And I think working on some of the feedback that we had from victims that we work with, there was concerns that after 5 it's hard to get support, hence why we went for a 24-hour helpline. So the helpline that we run as a consortium is open 24 hours, and you will find somebody at the end of the line to support you around the clock. In terms of the helpline, almost 95% of the people we've had is victims, which actually is positive, because it shows that they feel empowered, they feel comfortable in calling the helpline direct. In terms of, I think I do want to focus more on the current situation as in front of us. There has been a lot of consultation with victim survivors, other DV providers. We also sit on a lot of the DA boards, and what we're hearing is that we've had schools are closed. A lot of services are also closed. So how do victims contact us? Okay, normally victims would, they might go to school to drop off children. There might be also community centres that they go to. They might be going to college, but they don't have that in the link anymore. And it is important that we start to engage with our local communities to make sure that they know how to get access support. I had a victim who was so desperate that they sent a picture over the Facebook in the messenger, but still these a lot of the social media doesn't have the right safety in place, and we need to ensure that we make proper channels that they can actually come through to us. And this is where I think Roshni has been quite proactive in the work that we do. We've listened to the people coming through to our consultation. One was they couldn't find a single website that was actually accessible in different languages. We've acted on that, and we've actually now received funding to get that, have a function that could translate in different languages. We have access to Language Line, various other access to other facilities, but it's not always the ideal solution. So what we have now done is we've recruited, looking at some of the statistics, because a lot of the organizations are closed at the moment, community centers, we've noticed that although our primary focus was initially South Asian communities, we've expanded our services to cover BME clients from other areas, and we're seeing an increase in Afghani victims from Afghani background, Somalian, we're seeing there's Romanian. Again, we need to make sure that we have the right language skills, but also the cultural understanding to support these victims. Looking at some of the FMU, the Forced Marriage Unit figures, some of these communities were contacting us back in 2017. We saw a decline, and it really made me ask the question, why? Could one of the reasons be that we're not actually responding to their needs, hence less are coming forward? It is an area that we need to look into. We've got emerging communities coming into our local areas, and we need to acknowledge and ensure that our services are geared towards their needs. For West Midlands, one of the biggest communities that are accessing our services is the Pakistani community. And I think we need to ensure that we continue to support those communities. But equally, we need to make sure that our doors are fully open and we are engaging and making sure that our services are open to other communities that are coming into our local areas, are now in need of our services. We are looking to expand now our, it's the volunteers, our voluntary program, so we can start to cater for not only language but also cultural understanding of victims from the Somalian community. We've recently now recruited one of our workers who's able to now speak with victims who are from Afghani background. We're also looking to recruit Somalian background, and I think these are some of the protocols that we're putting into place to make sure that, especially during COVID-19, that we are there and we can support those victims, because one of the biggest concerns is the victims are stuck. Either they could be, off work, but the perpetrators are off work as well. So while we've got helplines, we've got to look at other methods. A lot of victims are saying, we can't talk to you because we're in small houses where we could be overheard. We're now putting a chat function on our website to make sure that every avenue is available for those victims to try and contact us. We've updated our website recently to make sure that the information is up to date. Just a lot of the time that, we do create websites, but we got to make sure that they are continually updated. I think in a nutshell, these are some of the provisions that we are looking at. But I think Pat and, everybody else that is here, one of the areas that we do need to acknowledge and address is 2/3 of the DV services have closed down. And I'm looking at some of the locally funded services. We do need to start asking the question, why are we losing those services? What are we doing as providers to make sure that there is sufficient provision out there? We've got honour-based abuse victims coming through our doors, but we do not have the refuge provision. Where do we put those victims? We're forced is the word to use. We are forced to consider housing provision that we deem not totally safe, because the option we're left with is leaving them on the streets or putting them where they've got roof over their head. These are the questions we should be asking.
A lot of information there, and as you said, cultural understanding is very, very, very important. So there's no barriers. We live in their language, cultural understandings, their needs. This is very crucial for any service who's supporting any victims, for them to understand, to make sure that we can support them the best.
It's also about partnership working as well, because no service alone can provide a full package. It's about working in partnership. For example, I think that the helpline, we got a call immediately. We were able, within 10 minutes, because you got to look at that. Not everybody, you can speak to over the phone. We had a school calling us saying, can you speak to the victim? We felt that wasn't the right thing to do because of the age of the victim. We actually contacted our outreach service and got somebody out there within 10 minutes to talk to that person in person rather than over the phone, because that could scare young people. So it's about having the right services and the right connections to respond to these issues.
Yeah, that, I think, and that is really important. As you said, collaboration is very important. This is the conversation me and Polly from Sharon Project had yesterday, how working in partnership and collaboration is so crucial. So thank you very much for your time, David, and thank you for your continued support. Really appreciate. And I would like to call Wendy Bird from West Midlands Police now. What can I say about Wendy? She's just amazing, she is. And the support we had during this campaign from Wendy, it was just, we're really grateful for your support, Wendy. So over to you now, Wendy.
Yeah, I just wanted, in 5 minutes, it's quite hard to give a summary of where we've been at, but I just wanted to reassure people that police within the West Midlands here totally understand honour-based abuse and forced marriage. It's been mandatory training for officers who've joined the police for that length of time, and also for our detectives who come back. And we had the SAO for the Benazma Mod case on the last SAO course come and deliver a presentation then as well, Caroline Good, who's just written a book on this topic. I've had occasions to work with Polly Hurrah, who was going to speak on the Sharon Project as well. She does some fantastic work, and Sir Watt as well. So for myself, from a policing point of view, being the regional lead and West Midlands lead for honour-based abuse, forced marriage and FGM, it's really important that I know and understand my third sector organisations, because that way a lot of information from the community is fed back to myself, and I also get a lot of information from police officers. So just to reassure yourselves, legislation is in. Forced marriage is a crime. It's been a crime for a number of years now. We've had 2 convictions here in the West Midlands, which were Birmingham cases. Interestingly, both cases involve females as perpetrators within those. And I think sometimes people think that men, and it's patriarchal societies and things like that, that perpetrate this abuse upon the women, but actually women support some of those patriarchal societies and systems that are in place as well. So we can't assume that the women in the family are not involved in trying to make other women within the community conform to these things. So Carmen Nirvana, we've done some work with Carmen Nirvana as well. We bought their risk assessment probably about 5 or 7 years ago now. So officers frontline who go to any of these honour-based abuse, forced marriage cases will conduct a domestic abuse risk assessment, but also the Carmen Nirvana risk assessment as well. And from there we can see what best interventions we can put in place for people. We can see how much risk they're at, and we can see what we can do in relation to safeguarding those people. We normally host here in the West Midlands at Millennium Point a multi-agency free event. So we seek funding every year, and generally internally from our own police service and surrounding police forces as well, funding for the conference that we give to other police forces, health, education, colleges, universities, school, anybody who deals with young people. Our biggest demographic is our 18 to 24 year olds. So we're trying to get into our young people. I mean, I'm not saying younger people aren't forced into marriage as well, but that's our biggest demographic. So we're trying to get the information to them. We work with third sectors. So somebody's asked on the side, what can we do? Well, when we host our events, we allow the third sector organisations to have stalls. So all different police forces or your children's social care, your health, your education can go around as professionals and speak to people at different stores to see what service that they offer as well. And like I say, if anybody's interested, we didn't do our conference this year, which is why we did a lot of online social media things this year, but we'll be doing a conference next year, COVID allowing us to. And we did Skype into Carmen Nirvana's conference this year, which was fantastic. So Beckel, who was Ben Admiral's sister, did an input for Carmen Nirvana, and she did a piece to camera for ourselves for our social media campaign this year, which was picked up by the Birmingham Mail, and they put that out across their systems as well. We wanted this year to work with a lot of religious groups to get the message out there from lots of different religious leaders that this isn't acceptable. No religion in the world advocates forcing anybody to marriage. We'd have a lot of engagement this year. Internally, I had an opportunity, because I wasn't organising the conference, to work with the Association of Muslim Police. They were fantastic, and I had a 2-hour meeting with one of the young men who, on his rest day, was speaking to me, and we talked about how we can make things better for the future. So I've got lots of really good ideas for next year as well, but it's getting all religions. I read quite a shocking story recently about a young Jewish girl who was forced into marriage and what life was like for her. So it's really important that we don't assume it only affects certain communities, that actually more and more communities are affected. But we can't shy away from the fact that the majority of victims that we get here in the West Midlands are young Muslim people who are told, one girl recently was told to be a good Muslim girl that she had to be cut, undergo FGM, but also to be forced into marriage as well. So it's about challenging some of those opinions from people when people try and control people through religion and are told it's a prerequisite and a requirement, when in fact it isn't at all. So our campaign this year, like I say, was social media. What we did was, and if I show you, I've got big forced marriage stickers that if you see some of our patrol cars in some of our areas, we've got some of these stop forced marriage stickers on the cars. I went to a Somali event probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, and some of the women in the community drew some black henna on my hands. And as a result of that, wherever I went for a week when I had the black henna on my hands, people would ask me, well, why have you got henna on your hands? Have you been to a wedding? What's going on? You've been to an event? What was all that about? So I managed to speak to people at school, in the business, to the supermarket, to the gym, wherever I went, it started a conversation. And it's about starting a conversation. So what we did from that, we produced some temporary tattoos. If you can see, they say, if I put it up to the camera, it says stop forced marriage. They're a bit like the tattoos I'm sure most people had when they were children. You peel off the backing, you put it on the back of your hand, you wet the paper, and then you peel it off, and then you're left with a tattoo on the back of your hand that says stop forced marriage. So at our conferences generally last year, and we sent some of them out via post this year to people. So on National Remembrance Day, people could take a photo of the tattoo and they could post it out via social media to start that conversation. We've also done previously a forced marriage flash mob. We did it on Black Friday weekend in Birmingham at New Street Station, when you have the biggest footfall through Birmingham. And we've had over 1 million hits on social media, which is absolutely fantastic. We engage with lots of people within the West Midlands from different communities and ethnic groups who are our own employees, but also we engaged with local colleges and universities to get some of the volunteers to dance. People volunteer their own time, including the police officers, practice dancing, and then came. So if you Google that on YouTube, that's available, so people can put it in. And I don't know if you're a school teacher and you want to use that as a bit of a livener. It's Bruno Mars, Do You Want to Marry Me? But like I say, how do you get to young people? Is via social media. Surwa and I recently have had a conversation about how to get to people as that young person is sat at home on the phone and they can't call somebody for help. Actually, they could do police live chat, or you could go on to Facebook and find, I don't know, Roshni or a lot of other groups, social media accounts, and actually send messages and get support that way as well. So you can contact the police now via live chat here in the West Midlands, which I think is fantastic. From a West Midlands point of view, we have survivors who are police officers and our staff members. So we had one of our survivors this year who was forced into marriage twice because of family circumstances, share her story, and that was put out via our own internal newspaper within the police and shared amongst our regional police forces as well. And just in the West Midlands, she had, within I think a 2-day period, over 1 million people, over 1,000 people had read her story, which was really, really inspiring if you read it, and really quite heartfelt as well, and you really want to rescue this person. So, you know, there's a lot from a policing point of view that we do. We had Jagdish Atwal, who's Surjit Atwal's brother, who's a Sikh gentleman who did a piece to camera for ourselves that we put out. If you want to follow us, we're at WMP Sentinel, WMP as in West Midlands Police, little letters, Sentinel, SENTINEL. I'll put the details at the end. When we do events, like I say, we like to put it out. We collaborate through the PCC's office with the Victims Commission, which is why Surwit and I, Swan and Pangela have done some work recently for the campaign and collaborated wide across the West Midlands as well. We had one of the lead imams at Birmingham Central Mosque did a brilliant video for ourselves as well, that subtitles on, that's at WMP Police if you follow us there as well. And he put a really clear message out about the difference between arranged and forced marriages. And we had lots of social media influencers who we managed to get via our various networks who put information out as well. So like I say, for us, it's about targeting that population of young people, training those or helping to support those other like university lecturers or college people to be able to give advice to young people who are coming forward who are worried about being forced into marriage. So from a policing point of view, we are all trained. and we are willing to work with victims. We understand these issues. We've got a new process where people study for a university to come into the police now, and as part of that, we've developed a whole day's package on honour-based abuse, forced marriage and FGM, which is a really big investment from West Midlands point of view. So it's just a little bit of a whistle-stop tour about what we're doing today in relation to things as well. But see our car stickers, if you can take a nice picture, or if you have links abroad. I spoke to my colleague today from Association of Muslim Police, and he's going to get some on some police cars in Bangladesh and in Pakistan as well. So if you have any links abroad, I'd love to see them. I don't know, a New Zealand police car or Australian police car. We need to be spreading the word. We need to get this whole thing out. We need to start the conversation with people as well. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll put my email address at the side. If people want to be involved in the campaign next year, I'm happy to support people or speak to them about what we'd like to do for next year. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That was a lot of information. You were right. Yeah, it's just impossible to have, mentioning everything what you guys do in 5 minutes. But you've told us so much about the services West Midlands Police providing and the campaign run. Before I call our next speaker, I want to show you all. This is what we did this year in West Midlands with the. Of course, Roshni, PCC, West Midlands Police, in honour of all victims and survivors of forced marriage and honour-based abuse, with the consortium helpline number, which is 24 hours helpline number. And we've asked people to light a candle and take part. And we're very, very grateful for all the response we received from a lot of professional organisations, a lot of general public as well. They were very supportive. So, Wendy, as you said, it is time to start the conversation, and I think we've done that. We have started the conversation now. We're just going to keep moving forward. So I think Polly's here. Yes.
Hi guys, thank you firstly so much for inviting me to be part of this platform. It's so wonderful, genuinely, to see so many familiar faces and new faces to address these really important and key issues. So I work for a charity called the Sharon Project. We're based in London, but we're a national charity, and we particularly support South Asian women who have been or are at risk of becoming disowned by their families and communities. So what we do is we look at the long-term impact of issues such as forced marriage and domestic abuse and honour-based abuse, because quite often the story that's often left untold is that of what happens next. What happens when she has to be forced out of her home, into a refuge, away from her family and community, quite often for the rest of her life. So what we work to do is to support young women to rebuild their lives by looking at positive actions towards a more independent and successful future. Now that might sound easier than the reality actually is, quite simply because when someone leaves home and they've been completely shut off from all their families and their communities, it's very difficult, and quite often they've been displaced and moved to another area. And so what we do is we take very much a client approach to providing support. What's in the best interest for our clients? And for many, that may involve working with organisations, particularly those who are here today. And in other cases, it involves criminal action with regards to getting protection orders and engaging with the police. So what I'm trying to say is there's no one size fits all when it comes to forced marriage and honour-based abuse. And the key here for all of us is to remember that and ensure that the approach we take with victims and survivors is centred towards what their needs are, because they best know their situation rather than us making those assumptions. So as an organisation, we do provide support for women who are at risk of or have been forced into a marriage or have been affected by abuse in all forms. One thing that we're looking at the moment is the impact it's had on young people with regards to lockdown and COVID-19, and particularly with the relaxation of certain restrictions. And one of the things, and I'm sure it's echoed by other organisations, is that we're also seeing a high level of an increase in cases to our service. But it's not so much the numbers that we're looking at, it's also the high risk and high harm cases that are coming forward. For example, we know that particularly in the last 3 weeks alone, we have supported 5 children under 16-year-olds, and physically had to have them removed from abusive situations because of forced marriage and or honour-based abuse. So again, the image that we may have of what a victim looks like varies from communities, from age, from background, from class, as well as ethnicity and faith. So again, it's really important that we take a tailored approach to working with young people. We recognise the importance of education. I mean, of course, prevention is better. However, we also recognise the importance of schools. And again, through the last few months, we've all seen the impact that has had not only on children's mental health, but also the concerns with regards to young people not having a safe space to disclose should there be something occurring at home that doesn't feel right, but they're not quite sure where to go and what to do. So a few years ago, we created a national forced marriage prevention and awareness campaign called Our Girl. The website's ourgirl.co.uk. And what this did was it worked with multiple partners across the UK to collaborate towards ensuring that schools had the resources, the training, and support that they need in order to safeguard young people. Since then, we've now been working on something called the Schools Charter. And this is something that we've been developing in London, but it has a very much a national reach, which is to go into every school in the UK to allow the schools to be able to sign up to say that they will not only ensure that people coming into the school to deliver training or workshops adhere to certain guidelines with regards to the input that's been provided, but that the school then steps up to ensure that their policies and their referral pathways are up to date and reflect some of these issues that we deal with. And we're not just talking about, we're particularly talking about harmful practices, which include honour-based abuse and forced marriage, but it also includes things such as FGM, faith-linked based child abuse, witchcraft and breast ironing, harmful practices that cross the globe and are often intersectionally linked to one another. So it's really important that we look at the wider picture. Quite often, if you only look for one thing, you'll only find that. But if you broaden your horizon, you'll see there are other harms connected and interlinked. And so it's really important that we work collectively towards that. So the Schools Charter is due to be launched formally launched in February, and then we're going to relaunch it now in September with the Metropolitan Police. And the partnership is a collaboration of multiple partners working together under one umbrella to ensure that we can provide a safer area for our young people. So that's one of the other things that we've been working on. But again, I think for me, the key message that's coming out here loud and clear is the absolute need to collaborate and work together. At a time when resources are tight, when funding is competitive, and when people are genuinely and actually concerned and uncertain of the future, the one thing that we do have is a common goal, and that is to ensure that women and young people affected by forced marriage and honour-based abuse have the access to the support and services that they need. I think I'll stop there, but I'm more than happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Polly, for all the information you've provided. And as we discussed yesterday, the collaboration, which you mentioned as well, is very, very important. So thank you so much for your time today. I think now I would like to call our next speaker, our Deputy Police Crime Commissioner, Mr. Vahid Salim. I know he was busy with another engagement, but he managed to join us here today. So thank you so much, Vahid. Over to you now.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's great to be here. And I do apologise. I do need to leave at 4 o'clock as well. I've got another call I need to get onto. This is the problem with working from home. Although it's great, so in one way that you can stay at home, or in my case, in the office. What unfortunately happens is my diary gets packed up with a lot of meetings continuously throughout the day. But it's good to be here. Forced marriage and honour-based abuse has been a priority for the Police and Crime Commissioner, and is very clearly in the Police and Crime plan that the Commissioner published back in 2016. And because of that, we worked with the consortium to put £47,000 to set up the helpline that Sarah once had mentioned earlier. And this helpline is a 24-hour helpline. It is free, and it is about getting support for victims. So victim support is an important element and important role that the Police and Crime Commissioner plays in ensuring that victims get the right support when they do become victims of crime. And this crime is very much a particular issue, that because it is hidden crime, as we know, and it impacts on people that may not want to get support, or might not be able to get support because of the nature of that crime, and sometimes don't want to report it to the police either. So that's why it's important to have trusted organizations, third-party organizations who have worked in the community, who has built up a considerable amount of expertise and trust in the community that they can provide that service. And I'm grateful to Roshni and Pran for many years who have stepped up and are providing the honour-based abuse helpline, and are helping a number of people who have reported issues to them. And it's important that just to say that it is a 7-day-a-week helpline. It's free from Marlboro's landlines, and since it was launched in June 2020, it's had 180 calls. And not only are they providing, can they provide support over the phone, but what's very important of the organisation that providing this helpline is that they can also provide ongoing support as well, and direct them and support them in reporting the crimes to West Midlands Police. And Wendy had already stated about West Midlands Police taking this crime as one of the priorities, and has done some fantastic work with the community, and has also taken people through the criminal justice system with and to successful prosecutions is great. And you might say, oh, it's only 2 prosecutions, but if you, I'm sure a lot of people on this call will know about the complexity of bringing prosecutions is very significant. So that is important as well to do that. And we need to continue taking that. Yes, indeed, Wendy, you are the only force, and it's really good that West Midlands Police is taking this really important. We are the only force that have had 2 prosecutions, which is really good. And what is important is that we continue to get this message out to communities. And it's really unfortunate that even in 2020, we're still having issues, we're still having cases of forced marriage and honour-based abuse. And there's no honour in this abuse. It is abuse, it is a criminal act. And some of the stories that I have heard, and I've been out to visit a number of the organisations and heard stories from victims. And one thinks and one wonders how people can inflict this kind of abuse on their loved ones, and most of it is done in families. So we do need to continue to raise the issue, raise the education in the communities, and support victims and support people to be able to report this unfortunate crime. And I just wanted to quickly just tell you one story that came out from an individual who rang the forced marriage helpline, and I'm just going to read what they said. and this is one of the victims said this. So my home was my sanctuary where I felt safe. But all of a sudden, my world turned upside down when I heard my parents making plans to get me married off. I felt confused, hurt, and betrayed. How can those who love me so dearly do this to me? I am only 16. Don't they love me anymore? I couldn't eat, sleep, or find the energy to do anything. I felt suicidal. I had no one in this world to live for. I became distant from my friends, and one day my teacher caught me crying, and she thought I was being bullied. She asked me what was wrong, and everything poured out. I hugged her and cried until I could not cry anymore. She contacted social services, who spoke to me, and also contacted West Midlands Forced Marriage and Honour-Based Abuse Helpline. I spoke to the helpline worker, who was so nice. She explained to me the risks of going back home, my options, and how they have supported other girls in similar situations. I no longer felt alone. With my permission, they referred me to an outreach service who came into schools within 20 minutes. They helped me get a forced marriage protection order, organised a safe place for me to go to, gave me food and clothing. I don't know how to thank the helpline and the outreach service. Without them, I could not be here to tell you my story. I have moved out of the area and I'm living with my foster parents. I go to college and I can begin to focus on my future. And that's the kind of stories that have come through the helpline and the impact that is having to safeguard and support vulnerable people in our communities who are unfortunately going through this awful situation. I think we want to continue to support organisations. We want to continue to work with the communities through the office of through the offices to enable and ensure that we continue to send that message out to the community that this is unacceptable, and we will do everything we can to tackle this issue, and will take every action that is available to us, either through the criminal justice system or through the civil system, through the protection orders, to ensure we keep individuals safe in our region. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak and for asking me to come along today. As I said, Police Crime Commissioner and myself are very committed to this issue and this agenda, and we will continue to work with community and voluntary organisations to tackle this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Vahid, and thank you so much for sharing that message left by one of the victims. And I think when we share personal experiences, it makes more difference to people who can relate and see that we are in a similar situation, and it encourage them to seek help. So thank you very much for that, and thank you so much for your continued support for the campaign. We really appreciate your support and your time here today. I know you have to rush, so thank you very much for joining us today.
First, I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers. What a fantastic contribution you have all made. And it was so nice to hear speakers like Wendy, your understanding that this is not a religious practice. It's actually, unfortunately, a cultural practice. And a practice that, in one which Wahid quite nicely put, there is no honour in this kind of abuse. It is a crime, and that's what it is. So thank you all for your contributions. It's been really great listening to you all.
I really appreciate all your time. And Wendy, thank you so much. The information you provided was just amazing. And all the speakers, Carmen Irvana, Sabat from Roshni, Polly, I know we had technical issues, but you've managed to overcome and shared your thoughts and told us about the service you're providing. Our MP, Vahid, PCC. It was just amazing to have all of you here today and listen to your views and your thoughts. And I think everyone would agree that we all understand and believe that there is no honor in killing. And we have this understanding that no religion allows anybody to hurt or upset any other person, any other human being. This is just a man-made thing, and we all are there to end this violence. And as Wendy have written in the chat section, that anybody wants to join for the campaign, you can contact them. Karma Nirvana also do a day of memory. So I think Ms. Madani have left her email address as well in the chat section, so you can contact them if you want to arrange day of memory, or if you want to get involved with our campaign next year. I've left the details there as well, so feel free to contact us. And once again, thank you everyone for your support, and I have to say thank you to our volunteers as well, who have been managing the back office, all the chat, all the comments, all the messages, and making sure everybody's unmuted. So thank you very much, everybody, and Shaz, thank you for your support. Thank you.